I'm Holly Madison, and I listen to Brian Shapiro.
Hi, this is William Shatner, and I listen to Brian Shapiro.
Right now, joining us on the line right now, he announced that he is going to be running for president of the United States just a few days ago as a libertarian. Very happy to have on the program with us right now, Joe Walsh. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hi, Joe.
Hey, it's good to be with you guys, but just technically, even though I do lean heavily libertarian, I announced that I'm running as a Republican challenging President Trump in the primary.
That is correct.
Former GOP congressman.
Correct.
Yes.
I apologize for misspeaking there, Joe. Okay, so let me give you the first loaded question here, right, that everybody wants to ask. Why did you decide to make this announcement? Why do you want to run against Donald Trump?
Look, this is a pain in the butt. Will be the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I just believe that this president is unfit to be president, period. And I think it's imperative that a Republican stand up and make that case.
So what would
no Republican stood up.
So what would you say? Now, listen, I give you credit because you've made some controversial remarks in the past, as you know, but you've apologized for those remarks. And that's more that we can say about Donald Trump. I'm sure we could agree on that. But what would you say to the average American that's not sure who they're going to vote for? They want to get more information on you, and they're worried that some of the comments you've made about Muslims and minorities could come up again if you are elected president. What would you say to people out there that are concerned about that?
Look, I've been very, very outspoken. I was in Congress. I've been on conservative talk radio for a number of years. I've been very outspoken. And because I've been so outspoken, there have been times I've gone over the line. There have been times I've engaged in hateful personal politics. I think I've sent out about 40,000 tweets in the last 6 years. You and I could find a couple hundred where you'd go, Joe, what the hell were you thinking? All I can do is apologize for anything I tweeted that was out of line. And look, I'll say this too: the election of Trump has really forced me to do some soul searching because I think he is the epitome of personal, ugly, hateful politics, and I never, ever want to be like that again.
So let me ask you this, and I appreciate that. What do you plan to do differently as far as policy is concerned? Because I know you've made a lot of statements about the ugliness of Donald Trump and the things he said, but policy-wise, where do you stand differently than Donald Trump with what's going on right now in the White House?
It's a good question. I've made the campaign a referendum on him, the man, but we do have policy differences. He is increasing the debt and the deficits faster than Barack Obama did. That's why I went to Washington 8 years ago, was to stop all these deficits. The trade war is a disaster. Nobody wins in a trade war. Americans are getting killed by that now. I'm a hawk on the border. Donald Trump said he'd build a wall. We have not built 1 foot of a new wall. And I got to tell you, I'm damn sick of Donald Trump hugging Kim Jong-un every chance he has. That kind of thing, I think that's reckless. And if Barack Obama had done something like that, our voters would be screaming.
You make a very good point there.
That's very true.
Yeah, and you listen, you've been very outspoken in regards to criticism of Barack Obama. But, Joe, tell me if you disagree with this. One thing I will say about Barack Obama, and I don't think he was a great president. I know you don't. I think he was a decent man, good husband, good father. I don't think he embarrassed the country. Like you just mentioned Kim Jong-un, right, or Vladimir Putin. You know, do you think Barack Obama would be up on a stage with Vladimir Putin joking about Russian interference? Do you think Barack Obama would be up on a stage talking about the death of Otto Warmbier saying, well, I believe Kim Jong-un, he feels bad?
Yeah, no way. No, you make that is the best doggone point. Look, I was very hard on Barack Obama. I was in Congress when he was president, and I always tried to hit him on his policies, but sometimes I let it get personal, and I apologize for that. But you're right, he was a decent man. There are so many examples of things that Trump has done that average Republicans and conservatives out there would be screaming if Obama had done that. But there's like a cult when it comes to this president right now that I find just scary.
Do you think that you're the type of guy that Donald Trump does not want to go up against?
Well, I'm going to punch him every day. For the life of me, I don't know why Republicans get so timid around him. He's a bully. I mean, he is a bully. He tweets insults at just ordinary Americans every day. Nobody punches him back. Nobody calls him out. I think he's cool. I do really believe that almost every time he opens his mouth, he tells a lie. Somebody needs to say things like this to remind Republican voters.
I don't disagree with you, Joe. So let me ask you this: since we're up against a hard break here,
sure,
would it be okay, because we got you a little late here, would it be okay if we held you through the break and we can do one more segment with you and get a little bit more into detail about your campaign, so on and so forth? Would that be okay with you, Joe?
You got it. I'd be happy to.
I appreciate that, Joe. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe.
So, and I know my co-host here, Chris and JD, want to ask you some questions as well and chime in. So we got Joe Walsh on the line. He's going to be running for president against Donald Trump. So
as a Republican.
So he corrected me on that one. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to ask him, I want to go further into detail into some more policies. Donald Trump, the things he says on a daily basis, says he wants to nuke hurricanes. I mean, just the things he says on a regular basis, ridiculous. We got Joe Walsh on the line. He's been gracious enough to stay with us. We're gonna ask him some more questions on the other side of the break. We'll take a quick break. Be back right after this. You're listening to the Vega Snake on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON. All right, welcome back. It is the Vega Snake, Sharp and Shapiro. Chris Wynn joining us in studio as well. He made the announcement just a few days ago that Joe Walsh will be running for president as a Republican, and he is nice enough to join us for another segment. Thank you, Joe, for taking some time to join us. I know my co-hosts have plenty of questions to get to you. JD, I know you have a question for Joe in regards to gun control. Go ahead.
I do. So the Second Amendment was integrated into the Constitution in 1789. Back then, the most disruptive weapon was the musket. Now you have assault rifles, semi-automatic weapons, et cetera, et cetera. Do you believe that revisiting the Second Amendment to match technology should take place?
No, and I'm pretty adamant on the Second Amendment, probably every bit as adamant, guys, as I am on the First Amendment. Look, gun violence is way, 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 way down in this country. It's been down for about 30 years. We got this bad, horrible thing called mass shootings. And I know every time there's a mass shooting, rightly, everybody looks for answers. I just don't believe I don't believe the problem is guns. I believe we've got sickness in our society. We've got a mental health problem that we don't know how to deal with. But I'm a pretty strong Second Amendment absolutist.
So let me ask you this. Can there be both? Because I agree with you. Mental illness is a huge issue in this country. There's no question. But do you have a problem, for example, the Dayton shooter who bought 250 rounds of ammunition, and he did have these weapons of war like an AR-15. And as we all know, these types of weapons can kill people at a much stronger rate than, for example, if you had a handgun like most police officers have. So do you not believe that we should have comprehensive gun reform as far as background checks go? And do you believe all these guns, you're okay with an AR-15 being on the market?
Yeah, and again, guys, I love the issue of guns, and I really respect everybody's position on this. But like the AR-15, that's a great home defense gun. It's a great hunting gun. It's just a great target practice gun. Handguns, the vast majority of handguns in this country now sold are semi-automatic, and they can come with 10, 12 round or more clips. So I think there's so much misinformation out there, but I get it. Something happens. That guy down in El Paso, He goes down to El Paso. He drives 10 hours to shoot immigrants, and we all want to do something, but I think we right away look at guns instead of rightly looking at the ideology that sent him down to El Paso. He was a white nationalist. I think the growth of white nationalism in this country, that now there's a problem that our country should do something about.
So, Joe, do you think that we should put any responsibility on Donald Trump? For example, Mexicans, he calls them rapists and bad people, and I suppose some of them are good people. When he uses the term invasion, the same, you talked about the shooter in El Paso using that same term in his manifesto. I don't put sole responsibility on Donald Trump, but I do think he should share in some of the responsibility. You've talked about Donald Trump's hateful rhetoric the last several days. Don't you think that Donald Trump should take partial responsibility in some of the hateful things that he says about particularly illegals?
I do, and I'm raising my hand right now, guys, because this is another issue where I'm very strong on, in that I don't want people in this country illegally. And a lot of people like me, we let our rhetoric on people in this country illegally get hateful. And that's contributed to the problem. And you're right. The president's got the biggest megaphone in the world. And so much of his rhetoric has been bigoted and hateful, and clearly he's not a guy who has any interest, right, in unifying this country. I mean, you saw his visits to Dayton and El Paso.
Pathetic.
He had pathetic. And he stands there with a picture of a baby who lost both of his parents, and he's smiling with a thumbs up. What is that?
Yeah.
Joe Walsh, former GOP congressman looking to primary President Trump, joining us here on the Vegas Take. Now, Joe, I want to bounce back to the campaign and what your expectations are. Brian kind of asked you the question as far as your platform going forward, but I have the question. The first question I have for you is, what was the straw that broke the camel's back when it came to President Trump?
That's my favorite question, because here's the deal. So I voted for Trump in 2016. I didn't like him. I didn't love him. He wasn't Hillary. I just figured Trump was a goof. Maybe he'd hire a few good people and a few good things might happen. It became readily apparent to me that every time he opened his mouth, he lied. And pretty quickly I went from a Trump maybe to a Trump critic, but he finally lost me. I mean, he lost me for good in July of 2018 in Helsinki when he stood in front of the world and he said, "I'm with Putin and not my own people." That was an act of utter disloyalty.
So I have to ask then, the past, 6 or 7 days has just been a barrage of bizarre, lunatic statements made by the President of the United States on a grand scale. And, it's to me, I think it's kind of, you've kind of reiterated since you've announced your candidacy to primary the president. You have basically brought those up and talked about that and clear that up with a lot of people out there.
He's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
He's a malignant narcissist. He's a psychopath. He's a child. He's a serial liar. He's a bad guy who puts his own interest in front of the country's interest at every turn. You can't believe – think about it. Yesterday, there he is in France at the G7. You literally can't believe a word he says.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what your politics are. No American should put up with this. He's just not fit to be president.
So, Joe, last night you had an opportunity to go on some shows, and basically for the past few days you had an opportunity to get your ideas and your thoughts out there. And you talked about how, look, you talked about President Trump and the reasons why you're running for president, but that's not going to be enough, right? It's not going to be enough just to say, Donald Trump is just absolutely unfit to be the commander in chief and to be in the White House.
Which we all agree.
There's got to be some other things, right, Joe, that you're going to propose, that you're going to be looking to do as you look to primary the president and on the Republican side.
There are, and I'm not going to BS you. This is a long shot. There's no doubt about that. It was the right thing to do, and maybe there should have been a better candidate than me to do it. Here's what I think. Here's the bet I'm making. Our campaign slogan is "Be brave." I believe that even most Republicans privately believe what I'm telling you publicly. I think privately they know this president's nuts, and they're tired of his BS. They're tired of all the tweets. They're just afraid to say that publicly. My campaign is going to go bananas every day trying to get these people to come out and be brave and admit it publicly.
Joe, I know that you're a Republican. I know you're running as a Republican. However, with that being said, I don't disagree with anything you've said about Donald Trump. I'm more in the middle. Is it possible that if you do not win, is there anybody on that stage on the Democratic side that you can say, you know what, good guy, I don't agree with all of his policies, but I'd rather have him be president or her be president than Donald Trump? Can you say that with a straight face right now?
That's a great question. So here's my honest answer right now. There's no way on God's green earth I could ever vote for Donald Trump again.
Wow.
I won't. So if I don't win the primary, no. He's a danger to the country. So I'll never vote for Trump. Could I vote for a Democrat? Again, no BS, honest. I don't know. I know Trump's bad for America. Most of the Democrats have ideas that are not my ideas. So I don't know if I can go there yet. Maybe. And who knows? Maybe there'll be a third-party candidate running.
Yeah, so Joe, throw that out there. There's a possibility, right? Look, obviously in a perfect world, you would be able to primary and knock Donald Trump off the top of the Republican mountain. But it wouldn't be so much a support what Brian mentioned as far as Democrats. You would not be beyond supporting a Bill Weld, right, or a Mark Sanford, or out of the blue maybe like a Mitt Romney, someone like that to come in and take back, right? I don't think I'm wrong in saying that is what we're talking about here, is taking back the Republican Party from Donald Trump, because you are a Republican conservative. And look, this is my personal opinion. I don't think Donald Trump is a Republican or a conservative. Okay, so I think, is it wrong to think that you would support somebody else, whether it be a Bill Weld or a Mark Sanford or someone like that?
Absolutely, and you nailed it. Trump's not a conservative. He's not a liberal. He's Trump. All he cares about is Trump. He didn't give a damn about anything else. Look, I would support any other Republican. Maybe somebody better will get into this primary in a month or two. Who knows? I'm just telling you that he's a danger, a clear and present danger to the country. I mean, I could never vote for that again.
All right, so I guess this is my last question for you, Joe. And by the way, we do really appreciate your time. If you're standing right next to Donald Trump right now on a stage, and you have an opportunity to give either an opening remark or a closed remark, and let's assume that he's insulting you. He's talking about some of your past remarks. He's saying you don't have a chance to beat him, that you're not a fighter. Typical Donald Trump nonsense. What would be, if you had a minute or two, what would you say to him in front of the world right now?
Why do you lie so much? Why do you lie about everything? Why do you lie about your crowd size? Why do you lie about the fact that Melania never spoke to Kim Jong-un? Why do you lie about everything? And then you know what I'd do? I'd keep my mouth shut. Because the problem people make with Trump is they ask him a question, he ignores the question, says something else and lies, and then people go on to the next question. No, I'd ask him a question, and I wouldn't budge until he answered the question. And my first question to him would be, why do you lie so much?
Yeah,
and I'd wait to see what he had to say.
His response would probably be an insult. You're right. He doesn't like to respond to direct questions like that could make him look bad. Well, Joe, first of all, I want to thank you so much. You've been very gracious with your time with us. As we get a little bit closer, we would love to have you on again, if that's okay with you.
Anytime, guys. JoeWalsh.org is the website. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
All right,
Joe.
There you go. Joe Walsh, Republican, not a libertarian.
Yes.
Running as a Republican. I do appreciate his candor. I think he was, speaking from the heart. And look, he's, like I said, and we all have said this, right? He's said some very controversial things in the past. But I think
he said some things that are flat out racist and just absolutely atrocious. It's not controversial. It's
you're right.
Bad.
But I will give him credit for this. Regardless of those statements, he's done something Donald Trump has not done, and he's apologized and he's owned up to them. So I do give him credit for that. I don't disagree with that. Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do, guys. Your reaction to that interview. We'll take your phone calls right now. We just had Joe Walsh, who just announced a few days ago that he's running against Donald Trump. I want to know what you guys thought about that interview. Do you take this guy seriously? Do you think he has any chance at all? What do you think about his comments in regards to Donald Trump? This is a Republican. Make no mistake about it. 702-257-5396 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the program. Again, that number to call, 257-5396. We'll take a quick break. We'll take your calls on the other side of it. You're listening to the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharpens Shapiro. Chris Wynn joining us as well. We just had Joe Walsh on the show, who just announced his candidacy to run for president. And I did promise we would get to those phone calls. Many people waiting on hold. We only have one phone line open at 257-5396. Why don't we start off with Brian? Brian, what's going on?
What's up, Brian?
Hey, good morning, guys.
Morning. Thanks
for
waiting.
Brian.
You looked in the dictionary under Mr. Walsh, you'd find the word nothing burger. He has no chance. He's another gnat who's entered the race. Joe Walsh is one of those guys who likes his 5 minutes of fame. Unfortunately for us, this is his third time at it. The first time when he stood up and said what he did against Obama during the State of the Union address. The second time when they found out that he owed $117,000 in back child support, and in order to get reelected after his one and only term in the House of Representatives, he had to settle that out of court. And now we have his third expedition into his 5 minutes of fame. He's going to defeat Trump. He's a phony baloney good time rock and roll banana who's not a conservative. He's been a very middle of the road moderate is what he classified himself
Brian, we
as.
agree. I agree on most of what you're saying, and I will also say this, Brian. I agree with you here. I don't think he has any chance. I appreciate your comments, Brian. I got to get to some other calls. 257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Chuck. Chuck, what's going on? Chuck, are you there? I believe we lost Chuck. Again, that number 257-5396. Gary, what's up?
Good morning.
Good morning. What do you think about Joe Walsh, Gary?
I welcome I welcome him doing what he's doing. I used to listen to his show, and he was absolutely right when he predicted that we were going to lose. The Republicans will lose the House of Representatives if President Trump doesn't stop calling women horseface and all this other stuff and going do like that. He was right about that. I disagree with the last caller on this child support stuff. For all we know, the woman earns $1 million a year, and he didn't pay child support. You know, that's a whole other thing.
Gary, I can't speak for that. I do agree with Brian, though, when he did say, I don't think Joe Walsh has a chance to win. I really don't.
No, he has no chance of winning.
Yeah.
But I welcome the primary. He has a lot of criticism, and this is a great country. But I like President Trump better because he is crazy, because he is unpredictable, because he has every world leader thinking about what this nut is going to lie about. Or
maybe he'll be shooting missiles into hurricanes, Gary. You're right about that. He is crazy. I'm not going to disagree with you. GCI Guys Hotline, 257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Todd. Todd, what's going on?
Hey, guys. First-time caller, first-time listener.
Appreciate that, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
I have to compliment you. You know, most of these radio shows, conservative and liberal radio shows, you know, they're just so one-sided, it's nonsensical. And you guys have done a really responsible job. Your argument this morning, your debate, I should say, this morning, was very, responsible. And I think what we need more of in this country. So great job on that.
I appreciate that, Todd. I can tell you that JD leans a little bit to the right. I lean a little bit to the left. Chris Wynn leans way to the left. But you know what? We want to hear both sides of the argument. I would prefer somebody calling disagreeing than agreeing. I do agree with you as well. There's a lot of shows out there where all they get are calls that agree with everything they say, and we don't want that here.
We're not being compensated to say things in one direction.
No, I mean, I give my opinions.
Everything we say, we mean we are a neutral platform.
Yeah, I mean,
for the most part.
I have my opinions on everything. Some lean to the right, some lean to the left. But I appreciate those comments, Todd. Thank you.
It's really refreshing, and getting to this Walsh guy, I get why you had him on, and it makes sense to have him on. It's interesting to hear his ideas and things like that. I think a lot of his points are silly. Look, I'm a Trump guy with regards to what his motivations are. His style, I'm not. I wished that if he were going to make comments and defend himself, that he would have a member of his staff or somebody else to say the words that he wants to say, and not as the president of the United States. Have someone else to take care of that. Corporate leaders do that all of the time, and some of this stuff certainly is narcissistic and so forth.
Yeah,
I think when you
could say
that level of success, that happens. Geez, if you work in the real world in business. You understand these knuckleheads, as soon as they think that because they made money doing one thing, they know everything in the rest.
Well, yeah, Donald Trump. That's the narcissistic attitude. Todd, really good call. I would like to get into a debate with you next time when you call in of why you support Donald Trump. I don't have time to do it right now, but I appreciate the call. Please call back again. Very good call, Todd. Let's go to Gail. Gail is joining us next on the Vegas Take at 257-5396. Gail, what's on your mind?
Hi. In regard to the interview you just had with Joe Walsh, spewing a whole series of hateful politics of personal destruction, I noticed when you asked him what, in effect, are your policies that you'd be running on, he still avoided giving you any policies that he would run on. Policies, not personality.
Gail, I don't disagree. I don't.
And,
Gail,
that's what we need to know when we have
agree.
a candidate.
It was definitely not
policies that are going to differentiate.
I agree, Gail. Gail, I don't disagree with you. You made a very valid point there, but I do want to ask you a question. Would you also agree that Donald Trump, throughout his presidency and the campaign, has also gone to hateful politics? Would you agree with that?
No, I disagree. He's had all kinds of hateful.
So let me ask you a question then. Okay, you said you disagree.
He has
That's fine.
Tried to decrease business regulations. He's helped business grow.
Let me ask you a question then, Gail. That's fine.
He's trying to end our senseless participation.
Gail, I get it. I get it. You're Gail. Okay, hang on, Gail. I get it. You're a Trump supporter, but you just said. Okay, hold on, Gail. Gail, hang on a second. So let me ask you a question. When he was running for president and he said, John McCain, I don't respect him because he was captured. When he put up a picture of Ted Cruz's wife compared to his wife based on looks and attacked Ted Cruz's wife based on her looks, what would you consider that? You wouldn't call that hateful politics? What would you call that?
Some idiosyncrasies that
you call it an idiosyncrasy when you go after a man's wife.
Nothing to do with his policy.
No, you're not You're not being that is hateful politics. I'm sorry, with all due respect, you're not being intellectually honest with me.
I think we should not have all this personal.
Brian, who's more attractive, Trump's wife or Ted Cruz's wife?
We should have policy.
Be intellectually honest.
Gail, what did you say? I'm sorry.
We should have policies discussed. None of this hateful.
So why don't you say the same thing to Donald Trump? Why don't you say the same thing to Trump? He attacks people every day.
Trump is actually very clear on his policies, and he always has been.
We've ever had. He's trying to put American people first. He's trying to secure our border.
So let me ask you a question. When he goes on a stage, when he goes on a national stage with Kim Jong-un and takes Kim Jong-un's side, when he goes on a stage with Vladimir Putin and jokes about Russian interference in the elections, would you say that's taking American side first?
He's trying to secure friendship from a lot of people.
That's not what I asked you.
Foreign leaders.
That's not what I asked you.
Not spewing hatred to foreign leaders.
You're right. Donald Trump doesn't spew any hatred. You're right. He doesn't know.
We're not going to win friends with foreign leaders if we go after them in hateful ways.
So kiss their ass and lie. Is that so? You think
he doesn't want wars with Russia?
All right, Gail. I appreciate.
Hillary Clinton did.
All right, I know. Shocker, you're a Trump supporter and you bring up Hillary Clinton. We got to take a break, but that phone call.
Quickly though, Brian, I find it fascinating that Gail and other Trump supporters feel that Trump is some type of deep diving policy guy. Okay, that's what the president is.
I gave her an opportunity to admit that Donald Trump also engages in hateful politics, and she showed her right-wing bias. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. Take more of your calls.
This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro. Come on, guys!